Servant Season 3, Episode 4 gives us without a doubt the strongest episode of this season. Spoilers ahead, let's break it down. So we know with last week's episode, Julian spent the time trying to gain Dorothy's DNA to test Jericho's parentage. He fails, and by the end of the episode, Leanne spots 3 of the homeless kids that Sean had been feeding the past couple of days, staring at her from outside, looking pretty sinister, and it's hinted that her fears are in fact warranted, as they may be from the cult that she was once in. And from the start of this episode, we see them still having these odd interactions with Leanne, and it's being presented in a way where we don't quite know if these kids are bad people or just people who stand out due to the paranoia that Leanne has because of how strange they do seem to behave toward her. Because there's even a moment in this episode where one of the kids is doing way too much and slowly walking up to Leanne, trying to ask her a question, and she clearly doesn't want to speak to him. And so, her fears, are starting to seem a little bit more warranted. Meanwhile, we have Sean and Dorothy in the process of baby-proofing the house, and both working their own gigs, which is preoccupying them and keeping their attention away from Leanne. Man, poor Leanne, she's having so much thrown at her in this episode. The indifference between her and Dorothy, the creepy, immature installer dude trying to hit on her, and then that uber bitchy fiance of Toby's. I mean, so much infuriating stuff that thankfully gets paid off with that annoying girl getting her finger not only chopped off, but completely shredded up in the garbage disposer. I think one of the best things about Servant is how funny it can be for the audience with just how crazy all these situations seem to go for the Turner family. We also get some great moments in here too, like Dorothy slowly coming to the realization that all is not quite as it seems, because in her eyes, something wrong is always happening to her and her family. And it's as if there's this dark cloud hanging over her. That's been the biggest conflict of this show, after all, is Dorothy eventually, discovering the truth about Jericho and what effect that might have on her. So it'll be interesting to see where that storyline goes this season, if they do explore it this season or potentially in season 4, which we do know, I think, is going to be the final season of Servant. But the last thing I want to touch on is the final shot with, even more of the homeless kid staring up at Leanne as she's dancing and finally feeling some sense of freedom and releasing all of that tension from the day that she just had, because we know in the beginning of the episode that she was having, struggling with, fitness and exercising and dancing and stuff like that with Dorothy. But now at the end, she's totally free, right? And I think this shows us that the homeless kids are in fact from the cult, but I don't think they mean any harm. There's almost a sadness in their eyes as they look up at one of their own who, at least on the outside, appears to have escaped the cult and gone on to live a normal life. And I think that these homeless kids, just like Leanne, have also escaped from the cult and are just looking, to Leanne as maybe a beacon of hope. And they probably just want to ask her what it is that she did to successfully get away and get a seemingly nice life, which puts the earlier scene of the boy eerily walking up to Leanne in a better light. It gives us a better perspective, because while it was an awkward interaction, that's probably exactly how every other person who interacts with Leanne thinks of her when they talk to her, because she can be very off-putting to people. She can be very standoffish and very awkward to people. They don't have the same social skills, the kids in the cult, as most other people, because again, that's something that Dorothy tells Leanne later, that most people just grow up and they have their jobs, and their moms don't always just sit around and do nothing. They do something productive. They go out, right? They do regular human things. So that's at least my thought right now. But it is M. Night Shyamalan, so who knows? I could be completely wrong, and he's setting us up for a crazy twist. We'll have to wait and see. But yes, that was season 3, episode 4 of Servant, which I think again is the strongest episode that we've gotten in this very young season. And I'm looking forward to what we get for the rest of the season as well. If you want to see more reviews on Servant, please go ahead and let me know in the comment section below, and let me know what you're thinking of the series so far and what you thought of this episode. And if you'd like to see more episode reviews of Servant, also let me know. And if you just love horror in general and film in general, well, consider sticking around and subscribing to the channel, because I do a lot of things here, from movie news, trailer breakdowns, and video essays on different horror films that I love. Then if you're into that sort of stuff, hey, maybe stick around. But until next time, this has been Millennium Movies, and I'll see you all very soon.